So without further delay, let me introduce you to your first speaker. So Dr. Eleonora Palmieri is the Director of Psychological and Pedagogical Victor Center Macerata, involved in dyslexia, dyspraxia, and autism. She works as a researcher at University in Macerata, Italy, concerning special pedagogy and disability, and has been involved in international projects as a trainer. She's the author of Video Motor Training ITARD, and I'm sure she'll correct me if I'm wrong, and Working Method of Champion LIRM, which stands for Intensive Reading and Speed Motor. So please join me to invite Dr. Eleonora Palmieri to present her research on improving the fluidity of whole word reading with a dynamic, coordinated movement approach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, for coming to this section. In my topic, I try to extrapolate a brief summary and the research anyway you find in my article in the journal. What I wanted to talk about today is how we work with dyslexic children, so our method and our treatment, how to improve the fluidity with cognitive and motor training. I wanted to, anyway, to start. Okay. I wanted to start from a consideration, as we support a complex consideration of the phenomenon of dyslexia, in the sense of a multi-componential disorder, as reading and writing are executive functions, and in particular are a complex process from motor to mental ones. So we start from an integrated condition with the extension to the overall praxis. So our approach is ecological and dynamic approach, because we work on motor skill, perceptual awareness, emotional maturity, thought organization, communication and language, social skills. This is extremely important because anyway, this morning, Professor Angela Fawcett have showed us that one of the most important indicators is the slowness in dyslexic child. So slowness in the actions, in particular in the initiation, can be easily recognized in dyslexic child, from the motor to the mental processes. So some important critical aspects are fundamental, in particular because the performance is related to neural cortical circuits. In this complex system, both cerebellum and lateral dominance are very important. So in our treatment, we promote the simultaneous activation of coordinated and constant function. This global activation is defined a neuromotor storm, from a passive learning to an active one. So we wanted to create an energizing platform. Why? What happens? Because many often dyslexic child is slow and messy in his executive processes. So there is a progressive dysfunctional in many areas. The activation training is conducting on an energizing platform under an automatic and intensive cognitive presence. So we improve not only all functions, but above all the coordination of the brain in itself. The functional program is based on 4 physiopraxis vectors: incipit, fluidity, cross-lateral pattern, a rotary pattern. What is incipit? Incipit is an important word that we use in our method, and the meaning is that the initiation, this slowness at the beginnings of each action, so that you can find not only learning, but in daily routine. If you observe the dyslexic children, many often they have many difficulties in addressing themselves or to go speed in this society, and this is, I think, a great problem. What is a fluidity? Fluidity is not speed. Fluidity is the fluency of our action. So for us it's important to be constant, to have a rhythm in our action. So when we read, when we write, and also in math skills. And cross-lateral pattern and rotary pattern are the most important exercises that you can see after this slide. So which is our target? The target is the executive fluidity and not the speed. It's not important to go faster and faster, but what is important to have a rhythm, in particular when you speak, in particular when you move. So language and movement are extremely linked, above all in our brain. I want to present to you our program. We work on sequences, synchronization, rhythm, language, and movement. Why we work in sequences? Simply because the dyslexic child has difficulties in complex functions or simultaneous tasks. For example, claps your hands, move your feet, and speak simultaneously. Many often dyslexic child has the difficulties in this performance because he can clap his hands, but he has difficult contemporary simultaneously to speak, and for example, to say the days of the week in a sequences or the months of the year. Synchronization. Why we use the synchronization? Because when you read and when you write, you need to synchronize a lot of function in our brain. So to synchronize an action is very important because you have to do this and not like this, because the timing is different. So rhythm, language, and movement. Cognitive motor training, what is it? I want to show you briefly some exercises, but anyway, cognitive and motor is important because are not simply physical activities, but above all, we improve the motivation in our children and self-esteem with an intensive cognitive presence of the child. Movement, physical approaches to build a strong foundation for learning success. Promotes motor coordination, speech communication at the same time. If you look at this picture, this is a typical example of a cross-lateral patterns. These are the two therapists that work in my center, and we use in this picture hands and foot contemporary, and you make this. But why you make this? You have also to use the language. For example, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But we go faster and faster. Why we go faster and faster? Because we have to create the automaticity. The problem is in the automatization. So now we can reach better performance in reading and writing if we go faster in this kind of movement. Then the energizing platform that I show you before, and in this way, if you look in this movement, probably you understand better what is happening in our brain, because very often the dyslexic child is clumsiness in his action, but in particular he fixed with his eyes and he has a difficult to start. In other words, he is not ready for, probably is not ready for learning. So we need a sort of warm up, and so with this kind of exercises we help him. So this is the first vector, fast incipit. We have in this case 3 words: lunch, job, and gong. If we want to, we can try. Okay, when I say this is lunch, job, and gong. Follow me and try to say only the words lunch, job, and gong without movements, only words. And look at me. Okay, this is a very easy exercise, which is the target. Anyway, we have 3 simple words that they have no meaning. We choose only for the sound. But what is important, because this exercise improve the initiation in the action. And you go faster and faster, but you can also add much more complex, for example, words. The second vector, general fluency. Why? Constancy, motor, global coordination, alternating sequential rhythm. General fluency. You can see in the daily routine, for example, when they go to school, many often they rush, they enter into the classroom because the time is a problem for dyslexic children. So timing in performance is a useful exercise. Alternating sequential rhythm. We use many balls in our treatments because while you do this kind of exercises, you speech. You can use rhymes, you can use a brief text, and you repeat in a constant way. And our most important, exercises are cross-lateral patterns, upper limbs and lower limbs compared to the body axis, like this. And each time you make faster and faster, and then you repeat. Why? Because when you read and when you write, this is extremely important for to improve a vector exchange between both hemispheres. Rotator pattern. Why rotator pattern? This is an example. Make this, not this, because it's not good. This. If you take your hand and you around the body axis, upper limbs, lower limbs, and body. What are our functional games? And in our article you can find, first of all, balance and coordination, because dyslexic children have very difficult in this, in balance. Spatial organization, self-control, better attention, temporal patterning, speech production, perception, speech rhythm, more fluency, automaticity of reading, writing, and math process. We work 3 hours a week with our children for 3 months, each time 1 hour, and we obtain this kind of functional games after 3 months. And then we can repeat after 6 months. We work also in graphomotor activity, to learn to control graphics in area and spaces. And I want to conclude to present to you my professor that is not here in this moment, but that he is the author with me in the article, because our research anyway supported by scientific research at the university. The Crisplani Method is derived from Professor Crisplani's, full professor of special pedagogy, University of Macerata, scientific director, Dyslexia and Dyspraxia International Center. And I want to conclude with a word of encouragement that we often use with our children. I won't give up on myself, because we believe that we can and we must work to improve a successful life for dyslexic children. These are some important references for us. The video motor training ITARD you can find in this link if you want. There is a password you can enter, that you can take, and this is the last publication of the Crisplani Method, Clinic of Dyslexia and Dyspraxia. Thank you very much for your attention.